The Old Gympie Post Office is a heritage-listed former post office at 22 Channon Street, Gympie, Gympie Region, Queensland, Australia. It was designed by Francis Drummond Greville Stanley and built from 1878 to 1880 by Andrew Collins. It is also known as My Country. It was added to the Queensland Heritage Register on 21 October 1992. The Gympie Post Office was erected between 1878 and 1880 and is a substantial two-storeyed masonry structure. It was the third post office built in Gympie and was designed by F D G Stanley in his capacity as Queensland Colonial Architect. It is one of 11 similarly designed post offices erected throughout Queensland during the period 1878–1898. Francis Drummond Greville Stanley emigrated to Queensland in 1861 and worked as an architect for the Lands Department before entering private practice. In 1863, he became Clerk of Works in the office of the Colonial Architect and was appointed as Superintendent of Roads and Buildings in 1871. When the Roads and Buildings branches divided in 1873, Stanley was appointed Colonial Architect, a position he held until 1881, making him Queensland's longest-serving colonial architect. He was a prolific worker and designed many buildings throughout the state, including public buildings and those commissioned privately. Queensland's first postmaster was appointed in 1842, and the first mail service was established in 1845. By 1859, there were 15 post offices through Queensland, although some of these were in privately owned buildings. In the 1860s, telegraph stations were established linking most towns to Brisbane, and this resulted in many more telegraph offices than post offices being established. The two bodies amalgamated in 1879 and continued to be operated by the Queensland Government until Federation in 1901, when they came under the control of the federal government. The town of Gympie was established after the discovery of gold in the area by James Nash in 1867. At this stage, the new colony of Queensland was in dire financial trouble, and a reward was offered to anyone who discovered gold. Nash received the reward of a circumflex £3,000, and the rush to the Gympie goldfield began. By 1869, the town now known as Gympie had a population of many thousands. It was established so rapidly that by the time the official surveyors arrived in 1868, a substantial amount of the town had already been laid out. This resulted in the town being laid out in an irregular pattern, following the topography of the land and the mining sites, rather than the orthogonal grid pattern familiar to most Queensland towns. In 1867, Postmaster General Thomas Murray Pryor reported to Parliament that complaints were being received concerning the lack of facilities at Gympie. It was decided to establish a postal service, and in 1867, E.H. Booth took up service as Gympie's first postmaster. An auctioneer and estate agent, Booth was not officially appointed, but was classed as an allowance officer, indicating that the demand was not great enough to necessitate the appointment of a full-time postmaster. Booth ran the post office from a shop in Mary Street, and the service rapidly expanded in the first 2 years. In 1868, an official postmaster was appointed, making the evolution of the postal service from part-time to an official service the most rapid in the history of the colony. The new service opened in Gympie's second post office building. However, the gold rush continued to bring an influx of people to Gympie, and the postal service developed accordingly, rendering the second post office building inadequate in a very short time. A portion of land was set aside for a new post office on the corner of Duke and Channon Streets on what was then known as Commissioners Hill. Due to its remoteness from the centre of the town, this location received strong protest from the residents of Gympie, and a petition of 500 signatures was sent to the Minister of Works. However, this was ignored by the government, and the erection of the new post office proceeded on the reserved site. Tenders for the new building were called on May 9, 1878, and 2 were received. Both were beyond the expected cost, and negotiations were made with the lowest tenderer, Andrew Collins. This included the reduction of the length of the building from 96 feet to 76 feet. The contract was signed on August the 23rd, 1878. However, the building was not completed in the specified time due to bad weather and a lack of skilled labour.